Good afternoon, everyone. I am pleased to welcome committee members and guests to what I believe is our very first paperless Committee on Student Affairs and Special Programs meeting. Everyone should have some form of an electronic device, an iPad, a laptop, a phone, or etc., to access the agenda and other supporting documents for this meeting today. There are 5 copies of the agenda and supporting documents on the table if you do have paperless access at this time. There are 2 action items and 1 information item that is currently before the committee. After the information item, which will be provided by the Vice Chancellor's report, the committee will go into executive session to consider 2 student disciplinary appeals. Our action items. May I have approval of the meeting minutes of our last meeting?
So moved.
Thank you. May I have a motion to...
Second.
Seconded. Thank you. Approval of the CUNY policy on child care services. Vice Chancellor Frank Sanchez will now provide an overview of the revised...
You have to vote on the, we have to vote on the minutes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can I have a second?
I already seconded
Any
it.
discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And the minutes are approved. I apologize. Vice Chancellor Frank Sanchez will now provide an overview of the revised CUNY policy on child care services. Vice Chancellor?
Thank you. This resolution clarifies and prioritizes the delivery of child care services to students, staff, faculty, and community members. A number of CUNY colleges today desire to expand child care services to children of non-matriculated students, to campus, faculty and staff, as well as community members. The Board of Trustees resolutions that authorize the organization of some of the college's child care centers addressed only service to matriculated college students and not service to others. The purpose of this resolution is to clarify in detail the university's position that although the primary purpose of our child care centers operating on a CUNY college campus is to serve dependent children of registered matriculated college students, centers may serve the children of the college's non-matriculated part-time students as well as the children of college's faculty and staff and community members so long as the needs of the dependent children of the college's registered matriculated students are being met and to the extent space and funding permitted. Any college that wishes to expand services to include children of registered, non-matriculated students, faculty, or staff shall submit a proposal to the Office of the Vice Chancellor for Student Affairs for review and approval. Guidelines regarding expansion will be developed and distributed by our office.
Thank you. May I have a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
Can I have a second to that motion? Any discussion or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Approved. Vice Chancellor Frank Sanchez will now address the committee regarding his report.
Thank you. We have a number of items to report out. The Division of Student Affairs is currently vetting an updated university policy on military service. The revised policy will look at admissions, readmission, and enrollment, academic credit for students called to active duty, academic credit for military training and experience, application fee waivers for veterans, and fees for military personnel stationed in New York State and their families. The Office of Student Affairs would like to thank Vice Chancellor Eduardo Marti, Dean Bob Tachik, and the University Director of Veterans Services, Wilfred Cotto, and the Office of the General Counsel for their contributions to revising this policy. The Division of Student Affairs is also working with campus directors of disability services on a disability service funding methodology that is data-driven, transparent, one in which the funding follows the student and where weight factors are assigned to students with disabilities with high-cost accommodations. In particular, our deaf and hard of hearing students. The Division of Student Affairs is vigorously pursuing additional funding for disability services from New York State, in part by trying to leverage our CUNY's $1.5 million investment in the CUNY LEADS program for a match by the State Department of Education through funding that appears to be available for transition initiatives. CUNY has experienced enrollment growth, in fact quite a bit of enrollment growth, in students on the autism spectrum. These students can vary service intensive, and their accommodation needs can be quite complex. Dean Rosa is working with Bill Ebenstein and faculty from Hunter College on a faculty and staff development grant to the FAR Fund to improve CUNY's capacity to meet the needs of these students. The Office of Student Affairs will also be establishing a partnership with our National Student Affairs Associations, the NASPA, the National Association of Student Personnel Administrators, to conduct a Student Affairs Institute in the 2012 academic year. And NASPA will be working with our office to provide 40 hours of on-site training with our Chief Student Affairs officers to meet the needs of our administrators throughout the university. The Division of Student Affairs held its first Chief Student Affairs Officers retreat this past October 13th at the Macaulay Honors College. The Executive Director of NASPA, Dr. Gwen Dungy, was present as a guest speaker. Executive Vice Chancellors Logue and Dobrin also addressed the council, and the retreat really had three intended outcomes. And the first intended outcome was to provide some discourse and conversation with the Vice Presidents of Student Affairs to better guide the Central Office of Student Affairs on how we can add value to the work they do with students on the individual campuses. And so that was one intended outcome. The second one was to identify priorities in which we collectively as divisions of student affairs can focus on in the coming years, and what might be some areas of investment, some signature programs that we can really move forward to better serve our students. The third outcome was to begin a conversation about developing vision, mission, and core values document as part of our strategic planning process. And we'll be engaging the vice presidents as well as the leadership of our students and the leadership of our Central Office of Student Affairs to develop a strategic plan over the next 9 months. And so that was the focus of our retreat. This past week, I guess it was 2 weeks ago now, the CUNY Central Office of Student Affairs launched a new professional development website that catalogs books and publications, workshops, events, national organizations, and training and development that are available to all of our student affairs professionals across the system. The purpose of this website is to support our goals for professional development and promote best practices that directly affect the welfare and success of our students. Our aim is to assist campus student service areas to be engaged in the most effective student service practices that are both evidence-based and shared amongst the leaders in our field. Also, at the Chancellor's request, my office will lead the university's relief effort to assist victims of the Eastern Turkey earthquake in collaboration with city and state agencies as well as disaster relief organizations. I'll convene an emergency meeting with the campus disaster relief coordinators and interested faculty and staff to make plans for supporting CUNY students and staff whose families have been directly affected by this devastating event, and to mobilize the university community to provide assistance to victims of this disaster. The meeting has already been scheduled, and it will be Wednesday, November 9th at 9 a.m. In this room, the Key boardroom. Topics for discussion will include grief and personal counseling, support for students and staff affected by the earthquake, sensitivity to students who may be forced to withdraw from all classes but are unable to follow proper withdrawal procedures, and the overall CUNY relief effort. We will assemble representatives from various agencies across the city to offer advice about how to best focus our relief efforts in order to ensure that those in need are beneficiaries of our efforts. Also, the University Student Senate had a very successful turnout at their election meeting on October 16th, and here are the election results pending certification of our USSERC. Chairperson Kafui Kwaku, who's joining us tonight, is our new Board of Trustees, student representative, and chairperson chairperson of USS. VC of Fiscal Affairs, Dmitry Vykovsky from College of Staten Island. The VC of Graduate Students, Jeffrey Aikens from John Jay. The VC of our senior students, Muhammad Arshad from City College. The VC of Community Colleges, Sandra May Flowers from Ostos. The VC of Disabled Students, Liliet Lopez from Queens College. We also have VC of Technology, Mohammed Semra from LaGuardia, and our VC for evening and part-time student affairs, Zihan Saroya from City Tech. There were 2 runoffs that will take place in the next week or so, or at the next USS plenary meeting, both the VC of International Students and the VC of Legislative Affairs. I'd like to give special thanks to members of our staff who served on the CIRC, Chris Rosa, Melissa Kirk. I would also like to thank Dan Simonette, Lori Christian, Charmaine Worthy, and members of our public safety team, Freddie Torres and Amna Ahmed. Additionally, I want to take a minute to thank Corey Provost for his leadership and his vision and his efforts, really the last 10 months I've been here, but really his tenure spanned over 2 years, and I think all of us should take a moment to recognize Corey. It really has been a pleasure to work with you to better support our students, and you've really provided a very strong stage and real high level of expectations for our new chair coming in for this coming year, and I look forward to working with you, Kafui, on continuing this very strong tradition of leadership and voice that our students have as part of this shared governance at the City University. That's my report. Sure. Sure.
I'd like to welcome you, Kathy, and would like you to say a few words if you will.
Kafui, if you'd like to say a few words as you join your first meeting of the Board of Trustees Student Affairs Special Programs Committee.
Thank you, first of all, and I'm really glad to be here. I'm still in the briefing process of everything that happened. I'm still doing the transition report, so I'm looking forward to work with everybody. I started meeting with a couple of people already, and so far everything looks good, and I'm excited to work with you guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Look forward to working with you. Are there any questions to Vice Chancellor Sanchez's report? If there are none, then we're going to move into executive session at this point. We'd ask people to please leave the room.
Please clear the room.